But first, I'm now calling it. Labor's voice is dead. With less than 5 weeks before the vote, this voice, this Aboriginal-only advisory parliament, is headed to a massive defeat. And the only question now is how can we limit the damage already done by the Prime Minister's foolish idea that has already caused so much anger and division? Because right now you can see the excuses being prepared for this defeat that would just actually put more petrol on this fire. You know, excuses like Australians are just racists or it's all the Liberals' fault. Before I get to that, let me first say why the voice is dead, dead and dead. Albanese started the year with almost 2/3 support in the polls for his voice, but every poll since shows that the more Australians heard about this voice, the more they hated it. And not just for its lack of detail, more importantly, because it will divide Australians by race. Now, a news poll last week had the yes voice, a vote, cratering to just 38%. The no vote at 53%, way over half, and undecided at 9%. Today's Resolve poll showed a collapse in support in New South Wales and Victoria. So there's now just one state left which supports the voice, Tasmania. But the yes camp has to actually win 4 states to win a referendum. So it is over. Now, of course, the head of the yes campaign today was still preaching hope, as he must.
Oh, I can't speak to the accuracy of that poll, Tom. We do our own research, obviously, and we're getting our own feedback from the 150,000 households that we've door-knocked over the last couple of weeks, and that's telling us that there are many Australians that have not made their mind up on this issue.
But of course, when yes door knockers turn up at your door, what are you going to say? Now, most people still seem a little bit scared about saying there are no, so they'll instead say, oh, I haven't decided yet. In fact, a third poll confirms this. It's probably the worst of the lot for the yes campaign. The Redbridge poll last weekend actually forced the undecideds to either say yes or no and found the yes vote was 39%, but the no vote a staggering 61%. So it seems that almost everyone who once said they were undecided is actually a no. And they're now starting to admit it. There is no hope for the yes campaign. More ads won't work, of course, because people are already sick of all this nagging. More people knocking on your door, well, that won't work either. That looks like bullying. And no campaigners in the street seem to be getting the cold shoulder. So it is over, and now some of the people who dreamed up this racist voice are already preparing their excuses in ways that can only hurt Australia even more. You take the Godfather The Voice, Noel Pearson, on the ABC yesterday, apparently suggesting that Australians would be racist, cruel, to reject this very kind offer to divide Australians by race and give people like, Noel Pearson, who identify as Aboriginal, their own advisory parliament with lots of powers written into the Constitution.
I just don't believe when the hand of friendship and reconciliation is extended from Indigenous people that at the end of the day, their love will be unrequited. I just can't believe that. I cannot believe we still live in an Australia where that hand would be just slapped aside. This unrequited love is my worst nightmare.
Every time I see Noel Pearson, I wonder what's happened to the $550 million we gave that man. Where's it gone? What have you done for the 3,500 people at Cape York that's actually achieved much? But let's nip this one in the bud, the racism thing. You look again at support for the poll, for the voice since last year. So Australians actually weren't racist last year when 2/3 said yes to the voice. But somehow they became racist this year? I mean, how does that work? It seems to me the real truth is quite simple. They realised this was all take and no give, with zero detail about how the voice would actually help anyone. And when the two most prominent campaigners against the voice are actually both of Aboriginal descent, Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, Warren Mundine, it's even more stupid to blame racism for this voice sinking. Dishonest, actually. But the very idea that, some 60% of Australians now, wow, they're just racist. That's why they're against the voice. That's either clearly insane or it's a lie. And this poisonous allegation has to be refuted now, has to be argued against, has to be resisted by everyone in this debate. We cannot progress as a country by now branding it falsely as packed with racists or packed with pawns of racists and liars in the no camp, as the other key figure in the design of The Voice, Professor Marsha Langton, told the Press Club last week.
They're very clever falsehoods. They appeal to the long-held tropes of discrimination.
There you go again. No, Australians are not stupid. In fact, more and more have looked at what's on offer with this voice and simply changed their mind. And that's because many realise they've been lied to by the Yes campaign. This wasn't a modest change at all. And reconciliation is clearly the last thing that many people pushing the voice really wanted. It sounded more like a stick-up.
The wonderful thing about the Uluru Statement, the proposal for a voice, this is the first step. It's a vital step, and it puts all the explanation behind it. Pay the rent, for example. How do we do that in a way that is transparent and that it actually sees reparations?
In fact, today the Prime Minister for the first time prepared his own defence as he stared at defeat. This was the opposition's fault, you see. They'd done the dirty on him by changing their mind on the voice.
How can you in good conscience drive the country to a divisive referendum on October 14? As the writs are yet to be issued, will the Prime Minister withdraw his voice referendum so that we can avoid an outcome which sets back reconciliation and divides the nation?
A majority of the process occurred under the former government. It was the former government that established a process under Tony Abbott. It was the former government that appointed Tom Calma and Marsha Langton. It was the former government that appointed Julian Leeser and Pat Dodson to chair the Joint Parliamentary Inquiry.
In truth, there was no way in the end that the Liberals, however stupid they may have been in the past, could finally say yes to a voice that betrayed their most fundamental principle, to treat people as individuals. And the Prime Minister should have known that. Now, Labor has to now realise that the real problem isn't racist Australians, a lying no campaign, or those tricky Liberals. It's the basic idea of the voice, of racially dividing Australians. Give Australians the credit for seeing that. And I actually have a problem with the opposition leader now saying, well, call off this referendum. Now, yes, I did want that myself a month or two ago, but it's all too late now. But more important, this voice must now be voted on. The vote must go ahead so that our political class finally gets the message forever. No racial division in our constitution. No privileges of race. And it's not just important the voice go ahead to defeat. It is critical that this defeat be huge. Because a narrow win would be a disaster. Everything be up in play, this, that argument. It has to be so overwhelmingly defeated that no one will be tempted to try this again. So overwhelming that no one could seriously say, oh, it's just the racist fringe that voted no. Or that it was just the Liberals' fault with a few tweaks and a bit of compromise. We should try again. Maybe get Parliament first to just set one up to see how it runs. This Yes campaign can't just be beaten. It must now be crushed.